Over the last couple of weeks, there has been a lot of buzz around agents. From Jensen Huang to Mark Benioff, they have been talking about agents. So let's explore what an agent is. Agent is intelligent. Well, it needs to be intelligent enough. It should be able to plan, it's aware of its environment, it can take actions, and it should be able to learn from its mistake and kind of like course correct. So let's look at a few examples of agents. So you could have a contract analyzer, a customer or an employee onboarding agents, or you could have coding agents like the one that I use with Avant and Vim or Cursor. And then you can also have the research assistants, the ones that would search the web for you, summarize the content, and make some points for you. So let's talk about how we would interact with these agents. So primarily, people are using chat interfaces, either through a web chat workflow like ChatGPT, or you could have Slack bots, Teams, or it could be integrated right within your tool, like an IDE, like Cursor or Copilot chat. You could talk to your code. The other way is for assistants to get embedded into the environment. Like for example, Copilot is a good example for coding, where when you type in, it would fill in and give us better suggestions. Grammarly does that. So does Google Docs and so many other tools, where it's not necessarily through a chat, but it understands the intent of what you want to do and tries to help you out with that. And finally, there are headless agents. So these kind of agents, you wouldn't know they exist. For example, there are bots which join meetings, record them, transcribe them, summarize them, come up with action points, and even create tasks in your project management software. So how do you build agents? So at the core of every agent is a large language model or an LLM. LLM needs to do a few things to be a good fit as an agent. So the LLM should have good instruction following capabilities. It should have tool calling support. It should support multimodality, as in we should be able to upload a screenshot or an image, and it should be able to understand that. It should have a little bit of reasoning, and it should be able to generate code. So I have a lot of experience with Claude Sonnet. I'm frankly very impressed with it. I've also worked with GPT-4o and O1. Although I feel Claude Sonnet is head and shoulders above GPT-4o at this point in time. I've just started playing around with DeepSeek. I feel DeepSeek and GPT-4o are kind of the same, except that DeepSeek v3 is a bit more cost efficient. I would also want to play around with Llama 3.1 405B and the Gemini 2 Pro. I don't think this is in general availability yet. But these are the kind of models you would use when you want to use them for agentic capabilities. So now that you have the LLM, you want the LLM to interact with the real world and do things. So for that, we are going to use a tool host. So LLM can call tools, but you need to tell the LLM what are the tools. And once an LLM decides to call a tool, you should be able to call the tool, give it back the results, and then it would go ahead and process whatever it needs to process. How do you define these tools? You would use the JSON schema. It's a part of the Open API specification. So it describes what are the functions and how you would interact with them. So, and this could be very simple, like click on this point X comma Y in the screen, or scroll down 20 pixels, or call an API to get a list of available slots, and so on and so forth. So those would be the tools. Another emerging standard for this is the Anthropic MCP, or Anthropic Model Context Protocol, where the only known host for it right now is the Claude Desktop, and it's an emerging specification. All right, now that we have tools, the LLM and the tools, we are now going to look at the context. So LLMs have been trained until a point in time, so they have a knowledge cutoff, and they have not seen private documents. So they wouldn't know corporate policies or see your emails. They haven't been trained on them. So in order for LLM to act on the knowledge that matters to you, you would need some sort of a search system to provide it. And the reason you want a search system and not just expose everything to the LLM is something called as a context window. Most of these LLMs have a 32,000 token context window. You can also pass 128,000 tokens, but you are paying for every token, and the 128,000 context window is 4 times more expensive than the 32,000 context window. So it makes sense to conserve your tokens, because as you have more and more interactions and the context kind of grows, you want to make sure that you optimize for that space. And you also want to have multimodal search. For example, if the user faces an error and they want to upload a screenshot, you want your search also to pick up relevant content that is related to the screenshot. So that's why you need a multimodal search. That is for the context provider. So now that you have the context provider, the LLM, and the tool host, you want a way to run all of them together. And that is where the orchestrator comes in. Orchestrator basically gives an event system. Like, for example, when a file gets dropped onto an S3 bucket, you need to do something, or a message is put in the SQS queue, then you need to do something about it. Or you receive a chat message through an API endpoint, you need to do something about it. So that would be the event system. And once you get an event, you want to scale the number of executions. So there are 100 people chatting at the same time, so you need 100 executions happening. And this would be on every message that the user sends. So these can quickly get out of control. So you need a way to scale them, manage them, make sure you provide adequate resources, or scale up and scale down as you need. You would then need observability. You need to be able to log what's happening with your agent. Make sure that you do not log things that should not be logged, like personally identifiable information, expose metrics, tracing, all the standard distributed system stuff. And you also need error reporting and recovery. So if there is an error that happens, like for example, if your LLM decides to call a tool and the tool crashes, or tool gives a 500 error, or it's just taking too much time, you need to be able to retry some of these stuff. And when you retry, you wouldn't want to go through all the other previous steps in the workflow and just retry whatever you need to retry. So you need to build in those mechanisms as a part of the orchestrator. And finally, once you have the system in place, you need to be able to build this system. And that is where you need the dev platform. For the dev platform, you could use Python with LangChain or DSPY or Pydantic or any of these kind of tools, or you can also roll your own. I mean, these things are not as complicated as they seem, but at the same time, there is a lot of nuance to this. Like for example, you need to be able to A/B test prompts. So some prompts may work well, some prompts may not work well. So you want to be able to version these prompts and figure out what's the best way to do this, or do some prompt engineering around it. You also want to worry about quota management, like the number of tokens that are being used. So for example, if you go from one version of the prompt to another version of the prompt for a particular agent from start to finish, how many tokens is it consuming? Input tokens, output tokens, can you optimize on that? You also want some sort of like a testing and an API dashboard before you roll out an agent to production. And you want a CI/CD system in place, because you don't want to be manually mucking around GCP or AWS configurations. So you just want to check something in or make some changes in a platform, and you want that to be rolled out. And finally, you want an observability dashboard, because you want to know how your agents are performing. So I intend to explore the space a bit more over the coming weeks. So I'm going to either build it live and stream it, or I'm going to post more YouTube videos and LinkedIn videos like this. So follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. You know the drill. I'm excited, and I hope that you would join me in this journey. Thank you.